hang on, if you're not subscribed and you like this content, subscribe. You'll get to see the videos sooner and support the channel. Only a handful of our viewers are actually subbed, so please give it a try. Indie survival games. At the very mention of the phrase, many popular and quality games come to mind. Games such as Subnautica, The Long Dark, The Forest, and others. But there is an up-and-coming masterpiece, a soon-to-be classic, a legendary title for the ages that was released only months ago, and its name is Muck. Where do I even begin? Muck was developed and published by indie developer Danny, who has a pretty popular YouTube channel that focuses on gaming and game development. He essentially made the game on a whim after a commenter challenged him, and here we are. He also has another game called Carlson that seems to be his more primary work. Regardless, the game is in no way a grand AAA production, but it also isn't some cheap garbage made by a team of money-grubbing mobile game developers. Muck is a survival game in which the player is placed on a randomly generated island that is covered in resources, small structures, cows, and at night an array of enemies to overcome. The main idea is to move up the chain of tools and weapons, get power-ups around the map called perks, and get the necessary resources to fix the boat which resides somewhere on the shore of the map. More on that later. The player must defend against an exponentially growing amount of enemies that increase in difficulty as the day and night cycles progress. The game also requires the player to speedrun, as it will eventually get to the point where any given night spawns dozens of enemies as well as an ever-growing amount of bosses. And oh, the bosses. The game currently has 4 randomly spawning bosses: Gronk, the Guardian, Big Chunk, and the Chief. These bosses are extremely annoying if you are not prepared, and when they pile up on top of each other, plus the countless enemies at night, it becomes almost impossible to survive unless you have the right gear and enough perks. So basically you start out on the map with nothing. Like any survival game, the first thing you want to do is break a tree, so you grab a rock and get to work. Immediately you should be able to use the wood to make a workbench, and from there you can make the first grade of tools, a wooden axe and pickaxe. This begins a rush to move up the ladder from wood to steel, gold, mithril, adamantite, and finally, obamium. Yes, obamium. You can certainly put in the time and effort to progress through these one by one, but your best bet is to look through the various chests on the map found in houses, carts, the newly added villages, or the caves. This is because you may find a pickaxe of a much higher metal type, allowing you to essentially skip the earlier tiers. From there, you need to advance to the highest tier as fast as possible. For example, if you get a gold pickaxe from a chest, only get a small amount of each metal as you go on. Move on to the next tool as quickly as you can and get only what you need. By the 6th night, you'll want to have some type of armor and the highest tools and weapons possible, which reminds me, you absolutely must get a bow. Bows can be made with the fletching table, but really you will want to get the ancient bone bow, a bow that shoots 3 arrows at a time and does a lot of damage. It can be obtained either through crafting it with an ancient bone, a drop from a goblin, or it can be bought from a fletcher at one of the newly added trading villages. Night 6 will spawn the first naturally occurring boss. If you're lucky, it will be a Big Chunk, and Gronk or the Guardian is slightly less lucky. All of them are very easy on their own, and if you have a bow and a stockpile of arrows from resource farming, the first boss event should be a breeze. After that, you should immediately get as many arrows as you can, as well as progressing to whatever tier of metal you have not gotten to already. Obamium, which takes a long while to harvest, is the endgame for armor and a sword, and adamantite is the endgame for tools. There are other things you can obtain from bosses, however, such as Gronk's sword, chunkium armor, and others. All the while, you should be using the coins gotten from enemies to be buying perks. Perks are gotten from chests scattered all over the map and will increase in price as the game progresses. They are random and include a wide range of abilities. There are perks that increase your speed, jump height, health, damage, strength, and much more. Some perks are better than others, and some are even worthy of being called completely overpowered. The more perks the better, even of the more insignificant ones. As they stack, your character becomes more and more powerful, and you will be able to make quick work of even the hardest bosses. The enemies really are the hardest part. On their own, they're not bad, but when there is a crowd of more than 10 of them at a time, it can be dangerous and time-consuming to kill them all. And you can't just run away either. There is no render distance for these things. They will follow you across the entire map until either you kill them or they kill you. It gets really bad when you're simultaneously dealing with a massive swarm of enemies and 4 or 5 bosses. Big Chunk is probably the easiest boss. All you have to do is jump over the occasional rock smashes and shoot him with your bow from afar. Gronk and the Chief are less easy but still not very hard. They're very similar in their design, and as long as you keep your distance, you should be okay. The Guardian is definitely the hardest because of the fact that its attacks do so much damage. If it spawns right next to you, there's a good chance you're a goner, because it may shoot a massive beam of energy at you that you cannot escape unless something blocks it. And its normal attacks are relatively easy to predict and dodge, but do a lot of damage if you lose your footing and stumble into it. Objective number 1 should be to get to the boat and get the gem map. This will locate on your map where each of the 5 Guardian mini-bosses are located, each of which will drop their respective colored gem. These are the most exclusive items needed for the boat, as the mini-bosses are the only way to get them. Everything else can be gotten naturally, and you'll need a decent amount of stuff from each level of progression to fix the boat completely. Once you fix the boat, which you should do as soon as possible before each passing day spawns 10 bosses and 50 enemies, it will begin to sail away, and eventually the final boss, Bob, will spawn. Bob is a giant green dragon who flies around the boat and shoots fireballs at you that are very easy to dodge. He will also come down and swipe his arms over the deck of the ship, also pretty easy to dodge. Really, all you'll need is a bow and a lot of arrows. A very easy but very rewarding boss fight. For being a game that my friends and I started playing as a joke, it actually turned out to be something I enjoyed unironically. The game's one-and-done nature is very addictive, as dying and being forced to start a new playthrough is beyond frustrating but also very motivating. I did not want to stop playing the game until I beat it, and beat it we did. Of course, it is a small indie game and has many aspects that are meant to be taken as pretty much a joke. But I really do think it is a very well-made game, and shows the intelligence and mastery of the craft that the developer has, especially if you can make a game this good on a whim. This game will probably receive many more updates in the future, and this video may soon be outdated. But really, the game is free. You might as well try it. It's super fun with friends and even fun on your own. You have absolutely nothing to lose. Try Muck. See you next time.